I think we can go ahead and start. Tonight we have Mimi Quinn, who's been working in healthcare marketing for several years within pharma, practice marketing, device sales, things like that. And she has a lot of insight to give us and wisdom to share with us. And with that, I will let her speak.
Thanks. Okay, well, thank you, Ashley, and hello, everyone. Thank you for spending time inviting me to come speak with you this evening. I hope I can give you some helpful advice as you consider going into healthcare marketing or any other area of healthcare. I think as I was thinking about what I wanted to share, a lot of it is advice that I think doesn't really matter what part of healthcare you go into. It should be useful to you, and even hopefully in your day-to-day life between now and graduation as well. Oops, excuse me, page down. I'm not sure why that doesn't want to go. I'll click up here. Okay. As Ashley said, I'm a graduate of A&M, graduated with a marketing degree in 2001, and have over 16 years of experience in healthcare marketing from a whole different range of environments, which I think might be helpful to you guys as you think about maybe what questions you have about going into healthcare marketing. I started on the ad agency side, first in Dallas and then in New York, and I did direct-to-consumer pharmaceutical advertising in those roles. I then went into the nonprofit sector with Seton Healthcare Family, which is the regional healthcare system here in Austin. And from there went into Abbott, where I did medical device marketing in their neuromodulation division. And then just in February of this year, I actually started my own private consultancy, and I'm supporting a healthcare system in Central Illinois right now in their brand strategy and implementation. So each of those environments is fairly different and has different things to offer you as you start your career. But I've also in those roles worked on marketing a variety of different aspects of healthcare. So the system as a whole, individual practices, service lines as you think about cardiology or neurology, et cetera, pharmaceuticals, and then, as I mentioned, also medical device. And again, each of those is a little bit different in terms of the approach, in terms of the strategy, and if you have questions on any of those or interest in any of those, I'm happy to talk about those further. You probably already are familiar with this, but I wanted to share that although my perspective is from marketing, there are many different paths you can take in healthcare on the business side. Obviously, there's non-clinical roles, but certainly different things in marketing communications. There's specific focus on physicians, engaging with them and helping educate them about different services available through the hospital system or through your medical products. There's community outreach and engagement, philanthropy, sales. I mean, a whole lot of different areas and paths that you can take. And I'll talk about this again in a moment, but I would encourage you, even if you go into marketing or one of these in particular, to learn as much as you can about the others, because it will make you better in that particular role and will help you think more strategically about the programs that you put in place if you understand what the 3 steps in front of your task are, as well as the 3 steps after. So as I reflected on the keys to success and things that I think have really helped me in my career, I listed these in the order of importance to me. The first is attitude, because with the right attitude, you can learn something from every experience. You can approach your work in a way that is more inclusive and helps you build relationships. And then I really think experience, although it's important, is probably the least important of these, because you can really, all experience is good experience. And when you learn from it, you can put it to play in helping you move on to your next role. So just a quote here: if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. And I think that sets us up well for the couple of bits of advice I have under attitude. The picture I have here is the traditional tea ceremony that I was able to attend when I was in Japan for business last year. And in chatting with the woman who was running the ceremony, she said that she actually had to study for a full year before she was even allowed to make the tea. That is the sort of central part of the ceremony. And one of the things that really struck me in my time in Japan was that the culture is very much about being present, being intentional, taking your time, and really putting your best effort into whatever you do. And I think those are lessons that are good reminders, because, you know, we tend to go here, and move on to this thing and the next thing. But as you enter your career and as you work in different roles in healthcare, you're building your own personal brand, whether you intend to or not. So if you're on time or late, if you engaged enough to take some notes when you're in meetings, if you don't really put your best work forward in everything that you do, people will remember that about you, and that will be part of how they perceive you going forward. So I encourage you to try and really be intentional and think critically in the work that you do before you put it forward for others to see. Second piece is I really think it's important to commit to being a lifelong learner. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a meeting and I have been absorbing information and I think, you know, this might be a dumb question, but I got to ask it. And it turns out that actually multiple people had the same question, or it was something that they hadn't thought of before. And it was a really good thing that I asked. Particularly, as I mentioned before, in healthcare, when you have the opportunity to go out and learn about different roles and departments within your organization, it will help you to create smarter programs. For example, when I was on the health system side, we were promoting a certain screening, and we had built this full campaign, but I took the time to go and check in with the scheduling department. And turns out that if we had just started driving traffic, people would have been on hold for 20 minutes trying to get in and make an appointment. And then in another case, we talked to the organization and found out that actually there was a waiting time of up to 6 months for an appointment, even when people got through. So those are considerations that have to be talked through and worked out before you go to market and just start, you know, promoting the heck out of something. Also on the back end, you have to check in with operations and say, okay, if I bring patients in for this particular program, what is that experience going to be like for them? Are they going to be forced to go through a lengthy check-in process, be forced to complete tons of paperwork at a time when they might feel very vulnerable and afraid? All of those are things that aren't technically in marketing, but are very important to having a successful program and for continuing to build relationships with patients or with your customers. Third one is aim high. And the example I have for this is when I was with Abbott in the neuromodulation division, which is devices and therapies that are for the treatment of chronic pain or also for movement disorders like Parkinson's or essential tremor. Fairly early in my role, I was asked to help lead the activation at the World Parkinson's Congress, which was in Kyoto, Japan last year. And this was a challenge that I was intimidated by because it was, although I had done quite a bit of event planning and marketing in my role in the healthcare system, it was all within, you know, a tri-county area, let alone on the other side of the world. And in coordinating with our speakers and our teams around the world, we were dealing with 4 time zones, you know, 3 different languages. And there was definitely a lot of things that I was afraid could go wrong. But one of my very close mentors I've had for years reminded me that it's a helpful exercise to think through, you know, what are the things that could go wrong, but it's also really important to ask yourself what's the best that could happen. So if everything went to plan, what is the impact that you could have for the organization? What is the impact you could have for patients and the health and well-being of their lives? And that often will remind you, it will empower you to make decisions that are bold and are really going to make an impact beyond what is safe and comfortable. As a manager, another piece of advice that I have as I've grown and developed team members over time is that it's really important to focus on solutions. So if anybody can point out, you know, this is something that might go wrong, this is a potential problem here, but I challenge you to go the extra step. And anytime you bring forward a potential problem, you at least have begun the process of thinking through a solution. That goes very far with your manager and with other people that you work with in a team. And mistakes do happen, and it's hard when they do, but you learn so much more from your failures, honestly, than you do from your successes. So be comfortable with that and be willing to aim high and be ready to learn what you can from each situation. Second category is relationships. And this is a quote from David Brooks, who's one of my favorite authors. No person can achieve self-mastery on his or her own. We all need people to tell us when we're wrong, to advise us on how to do it right, and to encourage, support, arouse, cooperate, and inspire us along the way. Certainly in healthcare, nothing you do is going to be in isolation. It's going to impact your team members, or it's going to impact patients potentially at a point in time when they are sick or injured or otherwise in a very vulnerable state. So I think it's really important that you listen more than you speak. This is a shameless picture of my dog Gus at dinner time. He does this every dinner time, and he's listening for only one word, and that is steak. Occasionally he hears it, but most of the time he hears nothing else. And I use that picture because a lot of times as marketers, we might think that we know our audience inside and out. We might think that we know this campaign and we have everything figured out, but I can't tell you how many times we've gone into research with consumers and someone will say something that we just had not thought of. And a light bulb will go off, or their reaction is something that we just couldn't have planned for. And it's really important to not just listen for what you want to hear, but what other people are thinking, and they're very potentially very different perspectives from yours. And on this point as well, I really encourage you, if you can, to find a mentor. I have been fortunate to have a couple of different mentors throughout my career, and much of the advice that I'm giving you today is advice my mentors have given to me. Someone who can be honest with you, who can give you their time and be invested in your future, and help you grow as a leader as well as an individual. This one might seem obvious, but it's really important to say thank you. You are going to have to ask people to help you, to provide things, to contribute to projects your entire career. And you would be surprised how seldom meaning that we should acknowledge all contributions. That can be everyone from, can you guys see me okay? And my internet's a little, okay. Everyone from the person who organized your meeting to the person who is responsible for cleaning patient rooms, anyone and everyone who might have contributed in some small way to the workings of your organization. It goes a really long way, and it's a simple thing to do. And also to be considerate with your asks. If you're, particularly in the ad agency world, there's a lot of tight deadlines, there's a lot of fast turnarounds, and if you can give people the leeway to have time to do their work 90% of the time, they're going to be much more inclined to help you out that 10% of the time when you have a fire drill. They're going to trust you and know that you did everything you could before you made that ask. And then lastly, building relationships. I think it's important when you ask someone to help you with something to start with the why. Why are you asking? What are you trying to achieve? Oftentimes you'll find that if you do that and you start with the objective rather than, you know, please provide XYZ by Tuesday, you're going to get a more thoughtful response. And a lot of times someone will offer something that you hadn't even thought of. And it will make your overall initiative much better. As a manager, I think it's, and just part of any team, I would say, it's important to share your successes. So if I get an email from a VP and he says, hey, you know, this campaign went really well, the launch was great, whatever that is, I I seek to say, you know, thank you for that recognition, but I really have to recognize the rest of my team. So-and-so really came through on the analytics. So-and-so really came through with the great design. Really share the successes, because again, nothing is done in isolation. Most of the time you're going to have a lot of help. For failures, however, when a mistake happens or something doesn't go exactly as planned, it is important to be accountable and take responsibility for that. Again, going directly back to, and here's what I learned from that. Last point is, you know, a manager is someone who hires and does reviews and manages your workload, and that's important. But a leader is someone who inspires you and builds trust and paints a broader vision of what you're trying to achieve. So I would encourage you to strive to be a leader, not just a manager, because you'll find that people are more inclined to follow a vision than they are one specific assignment. So I mentioned before that I think experience is the least, it's important, but it's the least important in terms of what you do and when, I would say. I want to look back on my career and be proud of the work, be proud of that I tried everything. I love this quote, and I'm going to tie it to finding purpose in your work. So early in my career, I think I started out by making a lot of decisions based on, okay, I want to live in this city, and I need to make this amount of money, and I logically, you know, I got my degree in marketing, and this seems like a logical first step. But as I've grown and had different roles, it's become more and more evident to me that you make better decisions when you decide with both your heart and your mind. You should do work that you're proud to do. You should do work that, in my case, I make decisions based on what I'm going to be proud to tell my kids that I do and that I've accomplished. And it's not all touchy-feely. Purpose-driven work is really good business. When people are part of a larger purpose and they see the impact of their work, they're more inclined to give their all. They're less inclined to leave the organization. And as customers and patients, you're more drawn to that type of care. The example I wanted to show here is that we launched a campaign with Seton that was called Human Care. And this was born from research that showed us that although people went to the doctor, they expected to get quality care. They expected, if I go to the hospital, I'm going to get over my illness, or I'm going to get well. What they weren't always receiving was compassion and being treated with dignity and respect when they were there. This was right after the passage of the Accountable Care Act. People really kind of felt like a number, and that my doctor doesn't really spend a lot of time with me. And so as a mission-driven organization, we had a 100-year history in the Central Texas area, founded by the Daughters of Charity. It was very authentic for us to say, when you come to Seton, you're not only going to get the best care possible, quality care, we're going to treat you with dignity and respect. We're going to do it with a human touch. And this is one of the components of that campaign launch that was particularly impactful. We had a billboard up for 3 weeks with no other information on it than the word healthcare. And then we literally broke the billboard in half because people had actually voiced to us that, you know, the healthcare system is broken in their perspective. And then we put it back together with a Band-Aid, and we said, welcome to human care. This kicked off a campaign that was very successful in terms of raising Seton's awareness and differentiation in the market, but also internally it became this sort of rallying cry for the organization, and reminded people why they got into healthcare in the first place, what it was they loved about their job and what they were doing. Next, I just want to encourage you guys to get out there. And I don't know how many of you have traveled outside of the United States before. I know right now it's a really bad time to think about travel. I personally miss it dearly. But it truly is an opportunity for you to gain perspective and become a better marketer, I would say, because you are able to identify as you experience other cultures, the commonalities in terms of being human, and things that traits and interests and needs and wants that people all over the world have in common, as well as the different ways that people can communicate. And just in general, I can't stress enough how important that has been. Depending on the type of company that you go to work for, you might have more or less opportunity to travel as part of business. Certainly when I was with Abbott, a global corporation, we had offices in different countries, and so there was quite a bit of opportunity for that, as well as conferences and just traveling around the country for visiting hospital systems. On the nonprofit side, it depends on the scope of the organization, but in a regional nonprofit, not so much. Advertising agencies, typically, you have clients that are based all over the country or even abroad. That might be more opportunity. It kind of depends on where you are, who your clients are, and what you're interested in. But even if it's just for fun on your own, I truly advise you to try and get out there and experience other places. And then lastly, just my advice is just to jump in. This is a picture of my husband and I in New York City in 2004. At that time, we were living in Dallas and had been there for about 3.5 years after college. And my husband's work was opening an office in New York. And they said they were kind of taking volunteers of people who were willing to relocate and help get that office off the ground. And we didn't have any children at that time. We said, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. We don't know what we're doing. We know nothing. Neither of us had ever even been to New York City, but we said, we're going to go, we're going to do this. And so we sold our house, sold our cars, and moved to New York. And it was one of the best experiences of my career, if not in my lifetime. Just immensely enriching, exciting, and I gained some very valuable experience working in that agency in New York. So the last point here is that one that my mentor has asked of me a couple of times over my career, whenever I've been nervous or I've been like, I don't know if this program is going to work, I don't know if I should take this job, etc. He would challenge me, what would you do if you couldn't fail? If you couldn't fail at this, would you do it or not? And that often has really kind of crystallized for me, okay, you're right. I mean, this is definitely something I want, and I'm just going to jump in. I'm going to do my best, and often that does work out just fine. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. I went a little quickly, so I apologize, but if you have questions on different types of